Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. Seth is sleeping? No, I am not sleeping. I wish I was sleeping. I know it was a little hard to get up today. There is definitely a direct relationship to like how tired I feel when I wake up and how long it takes me to get ready. All right, guys, let's go to the chart. Well, here in the 10-year Treasury, we are a little bit lower again, and this move that we're getting is kind of getting a little ugly. I mean, look, we still got some major levels below us, but I think especially if I come back over here, let's skip ahead to the Japanese yen. Like, there's a point at which you get a move down in the yen like that gets scary. They are still negotiating a trade deal with Japan. There seems to be a sticking point over the tariffs. Donald Trump wants it to be 25% tariff on Japanese cars. That's kind of a non-starter for them. It really would devastate their country, I think, 25%. But I don't know how it's going to turn out. Yes. Taking a bit of a hit yesterday over the tariffs, but the overnight risk tone has been constructive, so a little bit of a pullback, but nothing too crazy. Oil's still on the rise here. Gold, silver, silver in particular really going sideways past week or two. Kappa, still, well, you know, I don't know. There's a lot of movement in copper in there. A really spiky chart. Already showed you the yen. Bitcoin. 109. That's where we're at. Let's see here. For the algo, well, when I come over here and I look, there are some icebergs and big things going on over here. So even though I think that the market's going to be relatively range bound still, I think I should turn it on because I am seeing enough volume to make me go, well, hold on, something's going on. Do you have an email? Yeah, you can email speculatorseth@protonmail.com. For whatever reason, the microphone just doesn't sound to me as loud as I think it should be. Okay, sure. Let's recenter here. Let's see here. I'll make sure the news squawk is on. Oh, we get New York Fed inflation expectations today. That is an important number. 3-year note auction. But no major news during our session. Will Japan's rise price shock lead to government collapse and spark a global bond crisis? Ooh. Please no. Now, of course, the top story on Zero Hedge is about the Epstein thing. You know, I wonder. So listen, I don't know what's going on there. Okay. I'm not even going to attempt to try and explain it. I kind of think I mean, I don't know. I don't always remember everything that I say, but I feel like I've been on the I don't think anything's going to come of that. I've kind of been on that opinion for a while, right? Where was I going with this? So I don't know where that's going. But here's the thing I'll say that's relevant to trading. You can see it, right? It's just like all of the sudden, it's like somebody flips a switch. And there's different. I'm interested to see if it turns into something like conservatives don't want to talk about it anymore. And the liberals become obsessed with it. Kind of seems like I might make a shift like that. We'll see. Is it a partisan thing? I don't know. But when you see somebody, when you see the switch flip, like there's a media narrative, and all of a sudden it just inexplicably changes. Just walk away.
55 AM Eastern Time.
Seriously.
The US spread book year on year. Prior 4.9%.
Like, what's really going on? I don't know. Either there was never anything there, or like it's like super secret spy stuff. And either one of those is a bad trade for you, you know? Am I thinking it was a government psyop? Maybe. I mean, I've heard many plausible theories on this thing. But in the meantime, it's going to be a little frustrating because that's going to be like all anybody wants to talk about, right? It's kind of funny because I tend to be the person that's like, you know, I want to talk about the thing. I'm not going to shut up about it. You know, I have that disagreeable personality. I'm going to find the thing that seems to be we're not allowed to talk about and try and talk about it. Maybe that's been to my detriment. Sometimes I wonder if the YouTube channel gets throttled or if the live stream gets throttled. It has in the past, so it wouldn't surprise me if it's still happening. But I can see when it's a
according to sources,
news narrative and it shifts like that.
And Deutsche Bank, where a joint initiative to boost investor confidence.
Maybe they know something that we don't. Maybe they're really telling us all the truth. Either way, it's a bad trade. It's a bad trade. If there was some way in which this was relevant to the markets, and you were like, well, because they stepped in and they said that just makes me want to short the S&P 500 even more. Don't take that trade, man.
Commitments
never works.
Private capital
never works.
So again, the move could include.
Oh, what are we talking about? We're talking about
and investment commitments to attract
the government coming out yesterday and saying that there's nothing more to know about the Epstein case. Oh yeah, hold on. Let me check the email. I will take one position though. You know what? I think he did kill himself. I think he did kill himself. Nobody else came into that cell. He didn't want to kill himself, but he did kill himself, I think. It wasn't like a, oh, I'm so sad. My life is, you know, there's nothing more to live for. I should just end it up. That wasn't what it was. It was like a, well, they're going to come after me. I better just off myself. That's what it was. that is one of those on again and on. Yeah,
the US prior
it is. I mean, I've seen this before, right? With 9/11, there was some people on the left that just could never let go of this idea that the government had something to do with it. And it just kept going on and on forever, and there's nothing that you could ever say that would... I mean, and that's the thing that kind of comes down, is like, you got to remember that conspiracy theories are really a natural reaction to people that feel like they have no power. That's what tends to drive conspiracy theories, okay? So you can look at it, because Reddit used to be on this kick like, oh, the conservatives, they're all conspiracy theories, and we really need to do more to stamp out conspiracy theories on the internet. We need to have like narrative, maybe we do need government censorship on they were saying stuff like that. You remember those days, right? You remember all that stuff. And then all of a sudden Donald Trump got elected, and it's like conspiracy theory city over there on Reddit. Okay, what you got a picture of here, AO? Who? What application is giving you that error? Is that Jigsaw giving you that? Oh, he says Jigsaw. It is. Okay, yes. I do kind of know what this is. But something... Hold on. Let's see here. Okay, so Jigsaw uses an SQL database in the back to manage certain things. And I don't know what happened to you, but it has become corrupted somehow. You were crashing and you went back to the old version. Ooh, okay. So I don't know off the top of my head how to fix this, but Jigsaw support will know. You should contact Jigsaw support. I think that probably what happened was your database in the back has become corrupted, and you basically have to like clear it out. And I don't know how you do that.
So surely expecting the US Redbook year-on-year data.
But they'll know. They'll know and they'll fix it and it'll be fine. We'll never know anything, and there will always be outlandish hypothesis. Oh, no. We'll listen. If that's the thing is that there might not be anything to know. You don't have to understand that he was doing shady shit over there for sure, right? But like being able to prosecute it is really difficult because not everybody that was over there was necessarily involved. Right.
5.9%
and so unless you have a specific victim accusing a specific perpetrator of something and some evidence to back up that was happening, you don't really have much. That's why the whole thing with Prince Andrew, that's why that got prosecuted, because the girl was speaking out, right? And it's entirely possible, in fact, likely in a situation like this, that we, the public, end up exaggerating or building up in our head things to be even more, bigger and more extravagant than it was, right? So there's totally a thing like, people, they think that there's something there. They're going to talk big about it because they feel so confident about it. They're going to talk big about it because it gives them political attention and helps their short-term political objectives. And then when it comes time to put up, they have nothing. And they just have to say, oh, there's nothing there, and then kind of try and move on as quickly as possible before people go like, wait a second, you said, blah, blah, right? And so when you get a situation like this, that, you know, it could be, yeah, there's just nothing there, and we now realize how foolish of a thing it was to like go all in on this particular narrative, and we just want to move on. That could be what's going on, right? You gotta understand. But if there is something to know, I can almost guarantee you at some point we will find out. It might not be for 20 years. Tends to be like 20, 30 years after the fact, but at some point, people will leak information. I did find it really weird that they were like, oh, the New York office was like holding stuff back. We were supposed to release it and they held it back, and now we're putting it out. And just release all the videos. Okay, so I remember too it being reported that they had all of this compromat that like everything was recorded and the FBI just came in and like took all of the videos. I remember that being reported, but government says they don't have that. Who am I to say that they do? Listen, I'm not good enough. I'm not good looking enough to get invited to those kinds of surprises, so I don't know what's going on. Oh, no. Well, Epstein is not innocent. Obviously, he's not innocent. The whole thing is shouldn't there be more people getting arrested other than him? That's why I'm saying, well, seems to me that there probably would be people involved that understood that these girls were underage and should have, you know, are maybe considered accessories or whatever. But being able to actually go after and prosecute them is kind of probably not going to happen. Like even if there was no, like, okay, because some of these conspiracy theories are like, you know, it's this government or whatever. Okay, even if it wasn't that, if it was just Jeffrey, it was all Jeffrey in Virginia, and it was all them, 100%, right? It would still be hard to prosecute people. Okay, so the camera does not look right to me. I think that I have it on auto or something. It's like auto adjusting, and I don't like the way that it has adjusted. And I'm gonna fix it, okay?
Effective Fed funds rate unchanged at 4.33% July 7th.
There, that's better. But that wasn't the point, because I really don't want to venture into conspiracy theory land, right? But the point is that when you see a media narrative like that shift for trading, it's best to walk away. Because it's either that there really was never anything there, or there's like some government conspiracy, and either one is a bad trade for you. Okay, so our robot just went long there. That's interesting. You know what? I'm going to be very curious to see how this one turns out, because the price movement overall has been to the downside, but my market order imbalance is actually saying that we have an imbalance to the long side. And we are like below that stop out zone. So if this was a if this is like a range bound day, which I still think it is, the trade would probably be mean reversion up. See some short flow in oil. I don't think that this was a good trade, but it's still going to be really, really interesting to see how it turns out. Okay, are y'all seeing the Japan rice shortage? It's more dramatic than what our news shows. Japan is panicking and people worry and struggle for rice. Yeah. I did. Well, I haven't read the story on Zero Hedge about it. You want to read the Zero Hedge story about it? A little over a month ago, we first summarized the plight of Japan's soaring inflation and contracting economy with one word, rice. Well, technically, it was a few more words. This is what we said. What is ironic is that Japan does not actually have high core inflation. It does, however, have soaring rice prices, which have skewed inflation expectations across the population, as rice is a huge component of the overall CPI basket. Meanwhile, the Bank of Japan is scrambling to contain inflation, which has tumbled ex-food with real wages near record lows and is tightening conditions by raising rates even though it has zero control over food inflation. However, as a byproduct of its monetary policies and strong yen, the bond market is crashing every day now, and soon this bond crash will spread to Japan's banks and global markets, sparking a global crisis. Too long didn't read. Japan will unleash the next financial crash because the Japanese are now poor farmers. Rice. The price is rice. Ooh, wow. It is gone up big time. Woo, that's a pretty big jump. Fast forward to today, when with just 2 weeks until a critical election in Japan, attention is finally turning to this most important commodity for Japan and perhaps the world, and it starts with Japan's Nikkei profiling what we said was ground zero of Japan's inflation crisis, rice farmers. On a lush green plain bordered by mountains in northern Japan's Yamagata Prefecture, Nobuhiko Kurosawa does what 20 generations of his family have done before them. He grows rice. There is, however, a problem. Tending to seedlings under a piercing June sun, Kurosawa finds himself in territory unfamiliar to his predecessors. A shortage of the commodity kickstarted by an extreme 2023 heat wave and compounded by an inability of the zombified, extremely heavily subsidized local rice industry to quickly adapt to changing conditions, which has sent rice prices skyrocketing, doubling within a year. The shortage has brought rationing of sales in big city supermarkets and made the humble staple of Japanese diet the focus of fierce cost-cutting debate in a campaign for an election to the upper house of parliament on July 20th, where the ruling Liberal Democratic Party, LDP, to lose its existing majority in the upper house. Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba's position could be at risk, sparking a political crisis in Japan that could have profound consequences for both fiscal and monetary policy, not only in Japan, but across the globe. Oh man, well, so hold on. 2 weeks. And we're in the middle of trade negotiations? Yeesh. Okay. From his 30 hectares of paddies, Kurosawa supplies rice far and wide, from a nearby rice ball shop to a business across Japan and overseas. We received inquiries from new customers, but we were unable to sell to them because we already had contracts with existing customers. Our company also experienced a shortage of rice, and last year we had no choice but to narrow down our business partners before the summer. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Ishiba leads his conservative LDP towards the upper house elections with more bound approval ratings hovering in the mid 30% range and inflation identified as the biggest issue of concern among survey respondents, according to a Nikkei TV Tokyo poll, just like in the US before Trump crushed Kamala Harris in every battleground state. Having lost its majority in lower house elections under Ishiba's stewardship last year, the LDP, the dominant force in Japan politics for much of the last 7 years, needs to hold on to the slim majority it holds in the upper house with a coalition partner or face daunting challenges in pursuing a policy program as minority administration in both houses. If the LDP performs poorly, Ishiba's premiership will be in doubt, the Nikkei warns. This is a long article. Japan's struggles are becoming serious. I watch a few creators from Japan and it has become shockingly prevalent in their daily life right now. Well, but it's, it's coming into an election. So that's one thing. Is I think that these issues are all kind of being brought up and mentioned because of there's an election. He faces a daunting uphill climb. The outrage around the soaring price of rice hitting its highest this year for 30 years has coursed through mainstream and social media debate in Japan for months. Recently, even Donald Trump weighed in criticizing Japan for not agreeing in increasingly tough trade talks to tackle the crisis by importing more U.S. rice, a move that would be viewed in a dim light by Japan's farming lobby, a key LDP electoral base. It would, however, send the price of rice plunging, demonstrating once again why government subsidies are always a two-edged sword. The rice shortage that began in the summer of 2024 was due to a shortage of rice produced in 2023, according to Mayashi Hanma, distinguished professor at the Asian Growth Research Institute. To compensate for this, advanced purchases of 2024 crop rice have also occurred, driving up prices. Last year, demand for rice surged due to a growing number of foreign visitors to Japan, a record 37 million, thanks to the plunging yen, which in turn sparked a bust of non-rice inflation higher, as well as growing appetite for dining out and the relative affordability of rice compared to bread and noodles, said Kuino Nashiwawa, a professor at the Ibaraki. Man, reading Japanese names is so hard. Specializing in agricultural economics. He calculates a supply-demand gap of approximately 44,000 tons, an amount he estimates to be the equivalent of 1.8 months rice sales volume at supermarkets nationwide in Japan. Since then, Japanese television news and talk shows have been filled with daily reports on people waiting in lines to buy rice, how to cook old rice so that it still tastes good, and politicians' statements about rice. In May, a fervor engulfed and then agriculture minister after he said he never bought rice himself, as it was always presented to him as a gift by supporters. My gosh. Former Prime Minister aspirant Shinjiro Koizumi, a rising star in the LDP and a son of former premier, was swiftly appointed agricultural minister with a brief to get a grip on the rice crisis. Koizumi repeatedly pledged to have rice prices to 2,000 yen, releasing government stockpiled supplies in late May. Emergency stockpile sales, however, were promptly halted just hours later after retailers snapped up all they could in apparent rationing and soaring demand. Still, shelves in the capital, Tokyo, are frequently empty as early as of early July as stores sell out, often rationing sales to one bag per family per day. Which goes back to what we said almost 2 months ago. Because the Japanese have become poor rice farmers, the global financial may be imminent. Some more background. While many in Japan seek rice for daily consumption, as the world's fourth largest economy has developed, not to mention aged, so too have tastes for fancier and foreign foods. Demand for rice as a staple has dropped over recent decades to levels well below those seen in developing economies, to 73.5 kilograms per capita, according to the World Population Review. A production of staple rice for Japanese consumers has fallen broadly in line with the demand for decline in recent decades. Production of rice for other uses, including animal feedstock and a small amount of exports, has begun to take off. A researcher at the Distribution Economics Institute of Japan points out that as a result of prolonged surplus of rice before 2023, the price of rice had fallen to a point where producers would incur losses if they continued to grow rice as usual. For farmers, it was more profitable to switch to producing rice for non-staple uses instructed by the government and receive subsidies for it. So they moved towards reducing the amount of rice produced for the table, and then prices exploded. So there was some government intervention and it kind of didn't go well. Kurosawa said the delicate staple rice supply-demand balance has been upended. Japan has been producing just enough to meet demand, so the extreme heat of the year before was too much to handle. On the other end of the supply chain, consumers are also concerned about the long term. 26-year-old man living in Tokyo told Nikkei Asia he used to eat rice every day, but has changed habits due to the rise in rice prices since last summer. I kind of feel guilty eating rice now. Like, if people in Japan are not eating rice, should I be eating rice? Or at the very least, if I make rice, because a lot of rice gets wasted. You know, you cook it once and then you don't eat it all and you put it in the fridge and nobody wants to eat it after that. Well, you're eating it now. Kids, some child in Japan is going without rice today. And you have some, and you're just going to waste half of it? No. This is a long article. Do we really want to read all of this? Let's skip to the bottom. UBS concludes that while most expect USD JPY to remain range-bound between 142 and 146, several key developments could push the pair beyond this range. A move towards 140 could occur if uncertainty around U.S.-Japan auto tariffs is resolved and broader sentiment improves, especially following the Bank of Japan's recent Tankan survey, which showed an unexpected uptick in business confidence. This, on top of expectations for a Bank of Japan rate hike, could create conditions that support yen strength. In contrast, USD JPY could climb upwards of 150 if tariff negotiations stall, triggering yen selling, particularly as many companies are expecting a smooth resolution. Political uncertainty from the upcoming House of Councilors election could further weigh on the yen. Structural factors such as Japan's persistent trade deficit and the Bank of Japan's distance from rate hikes may also limit yen appreciation even amid broader dollar weakness. Overall, July could bring renewed volatility with USD JPY direction hinging on how these economic and political events unfold. No sushi for you, says Brad. Well, since my algorithm took a trade, it's gone nowhere, so no sushi for me yet. Okay, anyways. I've been watching the yen for a while now, right? It was kind of weird to me. Gonna show you this. If we come over to our charts. Maybe just a yeah. So like well, not really. We could come over here. Okay, so like yesterday, the S&P 500 just really got creamed. S&P 500 really got creamed. And then when we look at the yen, you know, they're pretty decent downside there in the yen. But then when I look at ZN yesterday, it was kind of like, oh. yeah, there was some depreciation earlier in the night, but through the day session, it was like it barely moved at all. So it's kind of weird. I'm seeing some like maybe decoupling there. Though it's a little bit fuzzy without having them like directly on. Both of them open. I still, you know, the thing though is that like Japan has been struggling for a long time, right? So it's kind of like something to watch, but I wouldn't be betting that everything falls apart tomorrow, you know? Wonder what the outlook for Amazon is, since Walmart and popular local retailers are all essentially, well, no, Walmart has been doing really poorly lately. And you looked at their stock? WLMT? No, WM. Oh, I thought it was 4 characters, but it's 3. Daily charts. Oh, okay. Well, it hasn't been too bad. When the tariff thing hit, man, Walmart took it on the nose. A good 20% decline or something. They've come back, but there's still kind of a roof on it. You can see here that while the rest of the S&P 500 has pretty much pushed to new all-time highs, Walmart is still down. So what's happening is essentially some of the companies that benefited the most from globalization, like Walmart, are thus taking it on the nose the most now that we are kind of pushing tariffs and so forth. Have you ever noticed how very often when we come towards a big economic question, where it's like we might learn something really, really important about how the economy...
Received messages from the Americans in recent days indicating...
Whenever we have a key point where it's like, oh, we might learn a lot about the economy from what's about to happen here, and then we get to it and like something short circuits it and we don't get to see it. Because that's what happened with COVID, is we'd seen interest rates drop pretty significantly before COVID happened. And we're like, what's going on? Why is everybody buying treasuries here? This is kind of crazy. Does this mean there's going to be a recession? A lot of people are saying there's going to be a recession. A lot of people were saying, well, that it doesn't necessarily mean that because of all of these different reasons, right? And then COVID happened. And so obviously the recession was because of COVID and not because of an economic condition that led to some sort of spin out, right? So we never really got to find out and answer some of those questions. And then the same thing kind of happened with tariffs last time. It's just like, okay, so historically speaking, tariffs have been a negative for growth. But the last time that we really tried heavy tariffs kind of happened at a time when there was a lot of other bad things going on. Like, some people blame the Great Depression on tariffs, or tried to blame it on tariffs. But the economic history now, I think, pretty conclusively shows that it would have happened regardless of tariffs. And it was just kind of a thing that was put on top of it. But what it did do is it kind of created that narrative like, this is something that you just don't mess with, right? So now we're messing with it. What is the actual real impact? Because, yeah, you can look at it on a high level and be like, do tariffs hurt or harm GDP growth? But it's a complex system. And so the more interesting questions are probably have more to do with, you know, how do all of these individual actors respond to that? And which groups benefit and which groups are hurt the most, and how does that actually turn out? Because it seems to me that while I think you could probably argue that tariffs lead to a slower growth rate, that it's not the end of the world. And so then we can see how how things go in this new system. Always have an eye towards complexity, right? We're changing the rules of the game. The results are very difficult to predict. And when you get these economists on TV that think that they know exactly what's going to happen from it, they're naive. Because the emergent effects of these things are very, very difficult to predict. Are usually unexpected consequences. Some bad, some good. So I was thinking about this the other day. My lips are really chapped today, man. So, like, the argument on the internet these days about capitalism and socialism goes something like this. Oh, we want communism. Well, no, because communism has always gone badly in the past, and the only system that's really been very effective at producing wealth for people has been capitalism. And then they'll say, well, maybe we don't want socialism, but there's some problems with capitalism too. Why can't there be a third way? And you are preventing us from trying to discover a third way of doing things. Right? That's the argument. Okay? Well, first of all, I don't think that, like, socialism light is a third way. Okay? Socialism has a tendency to devolve into full communism eventually. Moreover, I think that, you know, the real challenge is, how do you effectively share information about supply and demand? And I simply don't see any way of accomplishing that without a market mechanism. Without a market. Because that's the only way that you provide an incentive for those people to divulge that information to the rest of the market through their trading. Hey, but what do I know? Maybe there is a third way. Maybe there is a third way. But you know what? I bet you that if there is a third way that's better, that everybody would hate it. What I mean by that is, like, everybody would hear that idea and immediately be like, that's a terrible idea. We shouldn't do that. Even if the end result of it would be more prosperity, everybody's happier, etc., etc., etc. As soon as people hear the idea, I think that they would hate it. And here's why I think that. Because all of the easy problems have been solved. Like, we've been doing this for thousands of years now. Society has developed into a pretty complicated thing. And it took a long time for us to develop capitalism. I think in part because there are some parts of us that are kind of not suited for it. Kind of to say, I don't really like this. The way that we work in a family tends to be socialism, right? So everybody in the family shares the resources. So to me, socialism is kind of a more natural way of being for humans, but it doesn't scale. And so that's why it took so long to develop capitalism. So if there was really a third way, it can't be something that's just like super obvious. It can't be something that's like we all want, It's like, oh, well, this is naturally what we want. This is the idea that we gravitate towards, and ergo, and it's just the powers that be are keeping us from getting. No, it's nonsense. It would have to be something unintuitive, not our natural way of thinking, not what we naturally want to do. Maybe even have some elements to it that we find abhorrent. Because complexity. When you have all of these tiny little interactions, they can combine together to create emergent behavior that is often unexpected. And so maybe the system that is the most effective because of some emergent behavior that we would never be able to guess on our own. And ergo, we're never going to create the system that would do that because the things that would create that system sound awful to us. So that's my crazy take on that now. Oh, you want a third way? I bet you that if there was a third way that was effective, you would hate it. I'm going to bet you though that if there was a third way, that it would probably still involve there being a market. Because again, I don't see how you share the information. Even if it was all robots, like the robots are going to have different incentives. How do you get them to cooperate? So I'm trying to remember. My wife works today, and my parents are coming over to watch the kids. And I think that they had like a little bit of a scheduling conflict, and that my dad was going to come over and watch, and then I need to get him set up on the computer. So I might need to end the stream early. I can't remember. While I'm thinking about it, maybe we should pop over to Koifin and see if there's anything interesting going on today here with the start. It's interesting. First Majestic Silver is up 2% in the past day. That's a lot. That was yesterday. Okay, so down 0.22. DJT up 3%. That's not surprising. They're always a big mover. Datadog down 5.2%. Wowee, what happened over there? Are they getting squeezed by AI or something? I don't know. Okay, so they had a huge jump 3 days ago. That must have been earnings or something. Even though I don't see any earnings listed on here, there must have been some data release that was just amazing for them. Well, let's come over here. Finance, Yahoo. Like before I've been with Datadog, I've kind of been like, you know, it's okay. But that latest jump that's a big jump. Oh. Analyst resets Datadog stock price target after surprise addition to S&P 500. Okay. Cool. They're in the S&P 500. That's crazy. Can't believe it. I'm so surprised to find that out. Good for them. You know what? I've never really liked their product though. It's too expensive. It's too expensive. Soundhound up 11%. Is that unusual for them? No, though it is kind of starting to accelerate there, isn't it? Well, if they were to go and make another push for the 2023, 25 area, that would be crazy. Earnings coming up in August. Overall, though, it looks like nothing too crazy going on in stock world. The Treasuries did come down a tick or two. So that trade that we took is down 2 ticks. Or that the algorithm took, rather. It never turned... Oh, that's interesting. What's going on here? How is it that I'm seeing market order imbalance be positive, but cumulative delta is dropping like that? I'm not quite sure what to make of that. It seems like that there's a little teeny tiny bit of an imbalance in the treasuries on the sell side. But it's like it's not persistent enough to ever make this push into the imbalances outright sell. How are they doing that? It must be that there's a lot of absorption on it. Partly. That must be part of it, at least. You know what? I was gonna come in and try and program some stuff today, but I didn't even get into it. 90 minutes is really hard for me to really get a whole lot done in it. Oh boy, here's an article. CTOs reveal how AI changed software developer hiring in 2025. We asked 12 CTOs and CEOs what skill they now prioritize when hiring developers because of AI. Their answers validate what experienced developers suspected all along. AI is turning every junior developer into a code factory and every senior developer into a janitor. That's a brutal reality we're seeing across the industry right now. While AI and evangelists promise that everyone will become a 10x developer, what's actually happening is that companies are drowning in AI-generated code that looks perfect but breaks in production. So we asked people who actually have to deal with this mess, CTOs and engineering leaders who are hiring developers in 2025. What we found might surprise the AI hype machine. We asked one simple question: what skill do you now look for when hiring developers that you didn't care about as much before AI? Spoiler, they're not hiring prompt engineers. Here's what these leaders told us and why it proves that the most valuable developers aren't the ones churning out AI code, but the ones who can think their way out of problems AI creates. Critical thinking over code generation. Most engineering leaders said the same thing. They want developers who can look at AI-generated code and figure out what's wrong with it, not just accept whatever the AI spits out. AI often gives confident but wrong answers for us. Critical thinking and healthy skepticism are now a priority. AI often gives confident but wrong answers the developer must doubt. The key to quality is the ability to test assumptions. Without critical thinking, a developer can believe false results. At the interview, we demonstrate this skill as follows. We add errors or ambiguities to the task condition. We monitor whether the candidate asks clarifying questions. We ask the candidate to evaluate the code in terms of risks, not just functionality. The approach to hiring has changed. We give more open-ended tasks without clear instructions. The way of thinking becomes more important than a template solution. We actively involve behavioral interviews to check resistance to false confidence. The best candidates treat AI like a junior teammate. One skill I'm prioritizing now is critical thinking and code validation, essentially the ability to question and verify what AI tools produce rather than assuming it's correct. With AI assistants like Copilot or ChatGPT generating boilerplates or even complex code, developers are moving fast, but the risk of subtle bugs, security holes, or performance issues creeping in has increased. What sets apart strong engineers is their instinct to pause and ask, does this really do what I think it does? Could there be an edge case? They're not just consuming AI outputs, they're auditing them. I've adjusted interviews to include AI-assisted coding rounds. For example, I'll have the candidate use an AI tool to scaffold the solution and then ask them to explain potential failure points or suggest tests to validate it. I also like giving them a slightly flawed AI-generated code and asking them to debug or refactor it on the spot. Those who calmly display and improve on AI's output stand out. I've always been good at that, I think. Has AI changed how I hire? Yes, I'm less focused on speed typing or memorizing syntax and more on design, reasoning, and their ability to collaborate with AI tools. The best candidates treat AI like a junior teammate, helpful but not infallible. I hired a mid-level developer who impressed me by catching a subtle concurrency bug in Copilot. She sketched out how she'd test and refactor it and showing the exact mindset I now value. That moment of scrutiny saved us from a patient safety issue. We recently interviewed a developer for a healthcare app project. During a test, we handed over AI-generated code that looked clean on the surface. Most candidates moved on, however. This particular candidate paused and flagged a subtle issue. The way the AI handled HL7 timestamps could delay remote patient vitals syncing. That mistake might have gone live and risked clinical alerts. Thanks to that moment of scrutiny, we avoided what could have been a serious patient safety issue. Later, we found this fix would have prevented potential liability and saved thousands in rework. Now I look for developers who challenge AI outputs, ask, what if this breaks? And think about how code behaves in the real world. It's not about knowing more, it's about thinking deeper. If you're hiring in any field touched by AI, test how candidates respond when the machine is wrong. We need developers who can spot when AI gets it wrong. I don't know if I should read all these out. AI can write code, but it can't think about how systems scale. Yeah. But you know what? Most human developers can't either. I've seen so many, it's kind of weird how it works where like I've come into organizations and when it starts, they've made so many really, really bad decisions that really make it difficult for them to grow. And just by being there, they change. It's just like you hire the right people on and then the mindset changes. It's kind of... But maybe part of that is because I always have like architectural things that like I'm pushing for. Debugging AI is the new interview test. I'm down. Now, interesting article, but not anything in there that surprises me. Well, it's kind of moving up again. It's still very much in the range-bound action, isn't it? What's this? Oh yeah, Amir just saying yes, range bound. Yeah. I'm definitely still looking at this like, so where was it? Right there. Oh, I see. So like, oh, that's interesting. So we went from here. We were like a little bit overbought. And then they sold and that took us back to break even. So what I think is happening is like you get in market orders they're buying and they're getting absorbed and then they kind of get rounded a little bit lower. But when you look at it, like it's not moving a whole lot. There's a meme from the r/singularity from that movie iRobot. Will Smith says, pretend to be a scary robot. And then the robot says, I'm a scary robot. And then he's like, That's totally what's going on. That movie was kind of weird to watch. I watched that over the weekend. This person says AI will replace the entire C-suite and all middle managers before it gets to replace the coders who are actually doing some work. And this person says, with regard to skills, yes. With regard to hiring, sadly not. This is probably true. They'll probably continue to hire them even when they don't need them. I'm gonna be so amazed if this this trade ends up working out. Well, let's see here. It took it at 7:02, so it's got about 5 minutes to make something of it. I don't know. I think it's probably gonna scratch it, huh? Probably going to be a break-even trade. This is interesting. How come have I not seen this? The Fed has injected $11 billion into the overnight repo market for the first time in 5 years. What does this mean? Who failed? Yeah, 11 billion's not a ton, considering that was like the reverse repo market was like $1 trillion at one point, right? Quarter end. That might make sense. Can you make solid profits and just stay on eval accounts at Top Step indefinitely? No. Never seen anybody that just stays on it. Grandma must be over here and the dog's barking. Okay. So it's close enough to the top of the hour. I think I'm just going to call it here. No, wait. It should be exiting here soon. Let's wait for that. Yeah, so hold on. I thought that I had this set up to exit after an hour. Okay, so let's go back and be specific. Executions. Time. 7:01. Oh, okay. So it's not going to get out until 8:01. So it's got a little bit of time. And it's going to be close if it even makes a tick. Okay, so there's an uptick. That's going to have to be good enough for me. Hey Seth, I decided to go algorithmic. Cool. Should have told me about it earlier because I'm leaving now. Well, we'll see what that I don't know exactly what the robot's gonna get. If it exited right now, it'd be break even. But it's time for me to get going, guys. I will see you tomorrow. In the meantime, stay excellent, team.